What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow, so super exciting day here. Today, we are going to be talking about Survivor Season 36, Ghost Island, the premiere episode. I feel like the hiatus went by so short. So, my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and I feel like this is just like, oh, wow. I feel like the first episode of any season, like, no matter how you feel about the season, the first episode is always really interesting because it, like, sets the tone for the rest of the season. So, this is going to be
Yeah,
interesting.
and I was pleasantly surprised by this episode. I thought it was actually like super interesting, super good. Some things with like editing and stuff, I don't know, but I don't know, overall I feel like it was really good. We saw a lot of strategy from these players. People seem like they are wanting to make big moves early, wanting to make moves in general, and so I thought that was really good. I feel like this is one of the best episodes that we have seen since Millennials versus Gen X. Some episodes in Game Changers were really good, but then I don't know. I think this is just a really good episode, a good start to the season, I feel like.
I feel like it'll be really interesting because they've set up like a lot of arcs. I feel like the characters can be going on. So I feel like how these arcs work out is going to determine like how well I like the season. Because I feel like a lot of the character arcs that they've set out are going to be resolved within like one or two episodes. So that's going to be interesting and
Yeah,
possibly problematic.
yeah, I think certain people this episode got a lot of visibility, other people didn't, but I think yeah, overall we were confused about the theme before the season started. We were like, how do you actually play in like things from the past? How do you work this Ghost Island aspect? And I think it seems super interesting so far. I really liked the two twists that we saw, or like two Ghost Island kind of advantages that we saw this episode with the secret advantage and then the immunity idol. So I thought it was really interesting. I think they might have spent too much time, like screen time, talking about the past of this, of the advantage of the idol and like showing flashbacks kind of thing. Which I mean, I guess for the people who don't remember or don't know what the advantage is, but then I feel like when you have people like Chelsea, Libby, Bradley, and Angela getting basically zero screen time this entire episode, like were they even on the island? Who knows? And you're wasting your time showing Sierra Dawn Thomas giving her thing to Sarah, or like Andrea misplaying her idol. Like, I don't know. I would have rather seen people from this season having a confessional.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where like the flashbacks are good, but at the same time, I feel like they don't have to have the flashback. Like they can just have the person reading, like, oh, so and so misplayed this. Because, like, really, if they don't remember it being, if like people who are watching don't remember it being played in the first place, then they probably don't care about seeing it. I feel like.
Yeah, or even I don't know. I was talking to someone and he said he hasn't watched a lot of Survivor episodes and he watched some of last season, and like even he was feeling nostalgia about like the whole Ghost Island aspect, bringing back the past kind of thing. So even people who don't even watch the show that regularly are feeling the nostalgia. I feel like you're wasting what, 5 minutes of screen time talking about, oh, this twist at the intro. I feel like instead of usually how the intros of Survivor, the first 7 minutes or whatever, like it has, oh, the people, this is their job, this is who they are. They show a few people. But this intro, it was just recapping old seasons. They had like Eliza, they had Sierra Dawn Thomas, and I'm like, okay, but we don't know anything about these people. We maybe know like three people's jobs. We know Sebastian's a fisherman. We know Brendan's a PE teacher. We know Chris lives in New York and Michael is like 18. But we don't know anything about any of the other people from like the first 10 minutes of the episode. So I really wish we got to know more about people. But like Alyssa and I know who these people are, what these people do because of like boot lists and stuff like that we've done. But the casual player wouldn't care about who these people are if they don't know anything about them.
Yeah, I feel like Yeah. I feel like a lot of players are going to be like kind of screwed over by this because like you said, you listed like 4 people who barely got any screen time. Literally, I don't think they even said Angela's name once. So it's like,
No, yeah, I really don't think. I think Bradley talked for like a few seconds. Libby talked like once at Tribal Council, the second episode. And Angela, they didn't even mention like, oh, she's the oldest female competitor this season. She's from the like Army veteran. Like those are interesting things about what you can say is an older woman or the oldest woman this season, but we didn't get anything from any of these people. So I feel like that was a sort of flaw of the episode, but we can see both sides. You need to have the sort of background story for the whole entire theme, which makes sense, but I'm really hoping in the future they're not going to spend, 10 minutes out of a 40-minute episode talking about, this is blah, 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 blah. They did blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay. I don't know. I feel like we usually get to hear these people's backstories in the first 10 minutes, but we don't really know that much about these players come first 10 minutes or so.
yeah, I just hope that general trend changes, like you said.
Yikums. So first challenge, I think it was really interesting. I really love when they do challenges right off the back. So like heroes versus villains, doing the sand digging bag challenge, stuff like that. I really like that over the get stuff on a boat, jump off a boat, make like maybe swim to get something else kind of challenge. I really like these sort of physical challenges, makes you have to work together early on, sees how like you work in a team kind of thing. So Brendan and Chris were chosen as the leaders.
Choosing Chris as a leader, I feel like Brendan definitely makes sense to me, and I feel like his leadership role also like carries kind of throughout the edit, like throughout this episode at least. Like he's kind of seen as like a good, stable guy. But I feel like Chris, his entire episode was basically about like how he made poor choices as a leader, and yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Brendan looked really good in this first challenge. Chris, not so much, my dude. Brendan picks Michael and Laurel for the physical and then puzzle side of the challenge. Chris picks Sebastian and Desiree, and he does it basically without any hesitation. And Jeff's like, oh, no hesitation, blah, blah, blah. And then for who do you want to pick for the puzzle, Morgan visibly makes like a, not me kind of sound. Jeff starts talking about it, and then Chris like basically cuts him off, and he's like, that's okay, I knew who I wanted anyway, and then picks Desiree. I'm like, okay, dude, like, what is your deal? I don't know why you need to verbally say these things, and I think we see that as a theme this episode. Like, keep your mouth shut, people. Jacob, why do you have to verbally say certain things out loud? Think it in your head. Chris, I have no idea. I think I don't even know. Like, okay, I can see the Sebastian pick. Like, he's a fit dude. He's wearing like the tropical shirt, but Sebastian looks like he's straight up not intelligent. He basically looks like he's high all the time. I think his face just like is not there.
I also feel like during this challenge, like it was especially noticeable to me during the puzzle part, like how different Brendan and Chris were, as far as like Brendan was kind of like looking over at Laurel and like helping Laurel without like being a vulture over her, and Chris just seemed to be spending the entire time trying to figure out when he was going to pull the lever. Like I feel like he did not have any confidence in Desiree whatsoever.
Yeah, that is like another thing. Like, I think the timer twist, that was super interesting. You can either win more or win less. I really like that aspect. A 4x4 slide puzzle, Alyssa. Shameless self promo. If you all haven't seen, we have a how to do a Survivor slide puzzle video on this channel, but it's 3x3, so maybe we'll have to do a 4x4 video. But yeah, basically, Chris, you cannot 100% pull the lever on your teammate okay, we don't know, like, if Laurel is super far ahead. We don't know if Desiree is super far behind, vice versa kind of thing. But first 10 minutes onto the island, you're doing this immunity, whatever, reward challenge. And it shows that you basically don't have faith in your teammate. You don't trust their ability to get the job done. And now the other tribe has this huge advantage for not even winning the challenge, not even completing the slide puzzle. But it shows that you gave up on your teammate, and he had the shittiest excuse for why he pulled the lever. And I don't know, like, you cannot do that. And like you said, I really liked how Brendan was looking only at Laurel's puzzle, whereas Chris was looking between the two, seeing like, oh, are we ahead? Are we behind kind of thing. I'm just like, you cannot pull the lever 100%. I do not think that's a good idea.
Yeah. I feel like it would have been more reasonable for him to pull the lever if Laurel was like 1 or 2 moves away from winning. But like, I feel like especially with slide puzzles, as you get to the end, if you don't know how to do the end of the slide puzzle, it can take you forever because there's a certain strategy to getting all of the last pieces into place. So I feel like, yeah, that was definitely the wrong move for Chris. And I feel like Chris is kind of being set up already as kind of a villain this season, and like his going back to camp and like the beginning of his thing with Dominic definitely, I feel like, starts to set that up even more.
Yeah, like the sand in the timer sand glass thingy, it didn't look like a lot of time, maybe a few minutes. It looked like the sand was coming out really, really quick. And for slide puzzles, definitely when we were doing the 3x3 in the other video, it takes like 5 or 10 minutes, or if you're really good, Alyssa, it takes 1 minute. But these people probably not practice a 4x4 since that's more difficult, I guess. But I think it would at least take a few minutes, 5 minutes maybe, to do a slide puzzle. It didn't look like there was even 5 minutes worth of sand in that timer, but you never know. But if you think about all that, someone who's pulling it that early, like, no way the other team or your team could have even be done the puzzle to have won all the stuff and kept your fishing gear. It just doesn't make sense. Like, I think Chris, this shows a really bad beginning for him. And like you said, I think at the end of the challenge, Dominic is like, rose his hand when Jeff's like, who would have done something different. He visibly rose his hand. I'm like, okay, yes, good for you. You're wanting to speak your mind, stand out kind of thing. But do you really want to speak your mind, stand out? But I really respected it. I think Dominic, compared to some of the characters this episode who didn't get a confessional, didn't get anything, I'm like, okay, at least Dominic is talking. He's questioning the status quo. He's willing to push like the Survivor sort of stereotypes of how you're supposed to play at the beginning to the limit. So I really respected that, and I'm like, okay, that's good. Even though, you know, everyone is like, be quiet at the beginning kind of thing. Good for Dominic. He's wanting to question the status quo with that. I'm sort of bummed that this storyline of Dominic versus Chris did dominate the entire Purple Tribe's edit this entire episode. I mean, they didn't go to tribal council, so I guess that makes a little bit of sense. We didn't hear from a lot of people from this Purple Tribe, but I don't know. We really only heard from Dominic, Chris, Wendell got like one thing, and Sebastian got one thing. Kellen maybe, yeah, and then I don't even know like who else is on that tribe who got a speaking thing, because everyone just sort of blended with the back.
Yeah, I just feel like one of my problems with Survivor is the fact that like it's kind of obvious, like, if you don't have like anything in the first episode, that you're not gonna get very far. I feel like I cannot remember the first time someone was like invisible in the first episode and then did anything worthwhile.
Yeah, I think in the preview for next episode, when the tribes are swapping, they ask at least Angela, Libby, and Bradley to, like, they all get a speaking line with the tribe swap. So I think, okay, that's good. Maybe it's looking up for them. But yeah, I think if you're not getting at least one confessional in the premiere episode, and it was a double premiere episode too. So freaking 2 hours worth of Survivor, and you don't get one line. I mean, yes, with editing, you might not be interesting, but you can always say something. It's the first day of Survivor. If you don't have anything that was worthwhile to make it onto the episode from a confessional, like, oh my god, I'm so excited to be here, or like, I hate this tribe, then like, what are you saying in confessionals that don't warrant screen time? But yeah, I don't know. I think the whole Dominic versus Chris thing is going to play out within the next few weeks. Whether it's next episode and they happen to be on the same tribe swap, or after the tribe swap back to another tribe swap, I think this is going to have to play out quickly. I don't think it's going to be like a Mike Joe kind of thing where they're feuding, but then they become friends. I really don't see that happening. I think it has to play out, and I think Chris would be the one to go home.
Yeah, I feel like of the two of them, Chris is definitely the one being set up for like a downfall because, like I said, he's kind of like a villainous character so far in this edit. So, I mean, I would not mind him going home just because, like, he seems like kind of a douche. So
that's what we've been saying in every single like Survivor preseason stuff, and then people leave rude comments saying like, oh, why do you think he's like a dick? And I don't know how people don't see it. But yeah, I think definitely Chris is being portrayed as the villain, like you said. I think Dominic will come out victorious, and I think it's super interesting that they are like casting more of a Tony Joe archetype thing now. Like all these dudes are really into the game. They're always thinking they have that like accent from the northeastern United States. I'm like, that's an interesting kind of player to search for, and I think it makes the game interesting, I guess. I think straight up like nighttime idol searching might become a new norm, which is really scary, like sticking your hands into dark holes. You don't know what's in there.
yeah. But then we talked about how Purple basically only gets screen time to like set up that feud, and I feel like that's because, like you said, they didn't go to tribal this episode because Orange just keeps losing, and I feel like part of that is like they're not a team of good communicators. Like, yikes! That first challenge when they had to try to put the puzzle together was just yikes.
Yeah. I think I don't know. The challenge had happened. Good. Orange loses, purple wins. Okay, so first I guess we can talk about Ghost Island, which is interesting. It's sort of like an exile island, but now you are either sort of guaranteed to get something rather than like, oh, there might be something out there, let me go look for it. You play the game kind of thing. And I think there's a lot of strategy into like who you're picking to go to Ghost Island. I feel like the first episode we saw them pick Jacob because they were like, okay, let's keep maybe someone who looks like the odd man out. Let's vote him to go to go to Ghost Island. So then the tribe has to vote out, or like in-vote has to vote out someone who they weren't planning on voting out. And I think it's interesting, or you could look at it in the way like, oh, let me pick someone who I want to keep on the island and maybe make an alliance with later so I can be like, oh, I saved you that time by sending you to Ghost Island. Let's be buds now. Or sending the same person to Ghost Island every single time to limit who has an advantage in the game, to limit the amount of advantages going to a ton of separate people. So I think it's very interesting, a lot of strategy in who you keep sending to Ghost Island.
I feel like also if someone gets repetitively sent to Ghost Island, they're a pretty convenient goat at the end because you can be like, oh, they never had to go to tribal council. They just chilled at Ghost Island the whole time. So, that could be an interesting way to look at it, though I feel like people would be very hesitant to use that strategy just because there are advantages at play at Ghost Island. And I feel like also sometimes people just want to know like what is happening. And I feel like it's one of those things where if the same person keeps going to Ghost Island, then they're not going to be able to like then they control all of the information surrounding Ghost Island. So like what happens there and all of that stuff. So
Yeah, I feel like if you keep sending one person, that makes it easier. So you know this one person is going to have the target on their back because they're the only person possible to have an advantage kind of thing. Unless it's like the legacy advantage, you have to give it to someone else or give it to someone on a different tribe. Sending one person limits the amount of opportunities for a bunch of random people to get a ton of advantages, to have like an advantage get in or something again, which is super crappy. So I think there is a ton of strategy that goes in behind there. And I think I was like, okay, good for Jacob. First episode. You played your cards to be sent to Ghost Island because, yeah, you're safe. You can go see what Ghost Island's about. You're the first person to go. But
I feel like that was just, I don't think that he intentionally wanted to get to Ghost Island. I think that was just, he got selected for Ghost Island, so he's going to pretend that it was his strategy all along.
I don't know. I feel like my thing was, why would you verbally say, like, haha, tricked you all, you've been bamboozled, I actually wanted to go all along, blah, 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 kind of thing. I feel like that is sort of the start of his downfall, you can say. Like, why verbally say that? You sort of just piss the other tribe off. They're not going to want to send you again if you're rubbing it in their face that they just did exactly what you wanted them to do. And I feel like, I don't know. I feel like Jacob, being a super fan, would want to go to Ghost Island. He was saying how, oh, the tribe has always been talking about it the past few days. I want to go see like what it is. So I could believe that he would want to go to Ghost Island. But yeah, you never know, I guess, if his motivations were intentional in like saying certain things to purposely be sent to Ghost Island. But I feel like throughout his Survivor experience, he would probably have wanted to go to Ghost Island at least one time.
Yeah. Yeah, I just feel like Ghost Island is going to be really interesting as far as like seeing what becomes of it later in the season, especially like once more people know about like what happens on Ghost Island. I feel like that could be a really interesting way for people to like form their alliances almost, like make sure that like, oh, only people from my alliance are allowed to go to Ghost Island. That way, only people from my alliance can like get stuff or whatever. But I think that'll come into play a lot more next week after the tribe swap.
Yeah, I definitely think that like in Tocantins Exile Island, you sort of have to keep sending certain people, or like certain people have to keep taking the bullet to go to Ghost Island, so that you limit who gets advantages. You want people on your team, your alliance, to get the advantage. You don't want the opposing alliance to get the advantage. So I think that, yeah, like you said, that will play a big role into who you're sending to Ghost Island. And I don't know, I think Jacob was the perfect person to be the first person to go to Ghost Island. Like, he knew all of the snuffers, he knew the backstories, like he knew all of the seasons kind of thing. And at first I was really concerned, like, or like confused. Do you smash the urn randomly or in order? And it turns out you do smash the urn in order, left to right. So I was like, okay, then you definitely want to be the first person, because you know production will be putting like an advantage in the first person to go, because they want something to happen in the first like episode, the first time someone goes to Ghost Island. So you like, you want to be that person. And then I think the whole wager, the advantage for the next vote was really interesting. I really liked how this episode had a lot of decision making for the players. Either it's like risk versus reward, or that kind of thing. So if you're willing to take the risk, you can get the reward. But on the other hand, if you do take the risk and it doesn't pay out, you do lose stuff. And so I feel like in this situation, Jacob has to take the risk. Like, he knows, or he sort of tricked his brain into thinking he was going to be the next one out, and then he sort of became very neurotic about it, and I think that led to his downfall. But in his brain, since he did feel like he was on the outs, I feel like he has to take the secret advantage wager.
I would have been so pissed if I was Jacob, though, because he takes the wager, risks losing a vote, and then he gets an advantage that he has to give to somebody else. Like, I would have smashed something. Like, wow.
Yeah, like it definitely does not help him in the short run, and from what his brain was telling him, he definitely needed something for the short run rather than the long run. But yeah, I don't know. I think during this time they spent too much time talking about the things of the past rather than spending it on other things in the episode. And I think for the legacy advantage, I understood his pick with Morgan. Like, you need to pick someone who you think will make it to the merge, and then you can have a connection with to have, like, the, Chrissy and Ryan connection last season that we saw. And I think he picked someone good. I feel like Morgan is someone that will be under the radar and will probably make the merge.
Yeah, I feel like I think we both put Morgan, like, late merge boot. So that'll be interesting to see, especially like to see. Hopefully she won't make the same mistake as Sierra did about telling someone, though. But that's a totally different subject for a different time.
I think it's going to play out very similarly to the Sierra Dawn Thomas Sarah thing that we saw in Game Changers. I think when we talk about Jacob in the second episode, we can delve into it more. But I feel like because Stephanie knows that Jacob told her that Morgan has the secret advantage, Morgan thinks no one knows besides Jacob. Okay, Jacob's gone. Morgan will think, oh, I'm in the clear. Nobody knows that I have this. I'm safe at these 2 votes or this 1 vote, depending on, like, when you want to use it. So I think Morgan will be sitting high and thinking she's sitting high, like, okay, I'm definitely making the merge if it's at 13 kind of thing. But she doesn't know that Stephanie knows. And I think Stephanie, being super smart as she is that we saw this episode, I think Stephanie can befriend Morgan and then basically get the advantage like how Sarah befriended Sierra and then got the advantage. And Morgan won't even tell Stephanie that she has the advantage, but I think that makes it even better because Stephanie will just befriend her and Morgan will think it's like a legitimate friendship, but it actually has some ulterior motives. Stephanie just needs to be close enough to Morgan that once Morgan is voted out, Morgan will give Stephanie the advantage.
Interesting. That's a very interesting prediction. But anyways, Jacob's...
Oh, yeah, I think that's what I would do. Like, you have to play the person and get the advantage.
Yeah. But anyways, Jacob's at Ghost Island doing his drama, but there's also drama back at his camp because it kind of turns into kind of like a Donathan versus Gonzalez thing, I feel like. And it all centers around that puzzle and how, like, basically Gonzalez was doing, like, a post-mortem of the puzzle and was like, oh, yeah, this is what we should have done, blah, 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 blah. And then Donathan was like, that's what I said to do while we were doing it. So, yes.
Yeah, I think Donathan, I was really surprised. Donathan got a ton of screen time, the first and the second episode of the premiere, and we were not really expecting that. I had Donathan as my first boot out of the game, so selfishly, for bootless reasons, I was like, I really want Donathan to go because I had him as first boot. But I feel like you can't really help but not, how can you not root for Donathan after these episodes? I feel like Donathan literally got a ton of screen time right from the beginning. He is talking to Laurel saying, like, oh, basically saying he's never met a non-white person before, which I was like, that's a little, like, I guess it's good for him that he wants to meet new people, but I don't know. It was like, he wants to purposely only talk to non-white people and make friends with them. That seems a little problematic, but whatever. That's a different story. And I don't know, he just got a ton of screen time, so I was like, our boy Jonathan is going to be someone I feel like this season that won't win the season. I don't think Jonathan's going to win, but he's going to be like the Mike or David edit where he's doing all these things, growing a ton, talking about Eastern Kentucky a ton, and then just like having that growth edit that it seems like he is very much having. He talked a ton about growing this episode. So I think that's what we're going to see from Jonathan. He'll just sort of be there on the island. I feel like he could be a goat, but he'll just have a bunch of growth things that he'll talk about as confessionals.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely what's going to happen with Jonathan. Like, I don't dislike him, but I also don't really like him either, just because a lot of what you said about, like, he seems mildly problematic, and, like, I'm glad that he's trying to become a better person or whatever, but I feel like also you shouldn't just be using people just to, like, expand your horizons, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was rooting for Jonathan the first episode. I was like, haha, it's sort of funny that you have to be captioned on everything you say with that Eastern Kentuckian accent. But then during the swimming challenge, I was sort of like, okay, James is trying to get the buoys. Like, were they not allowed to send someone else in to get the buoys kind of thing, which makes sense. And then Jonathan was basically just sitting on the side. They were like, Jonathan, go in and try it. And Jonathan says no, straight up. So that sort of turned me off of him. And then he gets in the immunity challenge, he gets this whole music, the whole arc of, oh, he didn't think he could do it, and then, now he can do it. But, like, literally, he was sitting there on the side saying he didn't want to do it, and then he sort of was forced into trying to dive down and unlock the buoys. So I really did not understand why they were giving him such an uplifting music edit during this time, and it was like, it sort of drew the attention away from the other tribe.
Especially because I feel like the uplifting music edit thing is also more powerful for characters like Sari that we've already like developed a connection with, and it's like we want to see them succeed. So I feel like doing it on literally the second episode was a little like, yikes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Jonathan is not a Sari, you have to earn that right kind of thing. And so him getting the whole uplifting music for basically not wanting to do it, being forced to do it, and then, doing it, didn't make sense. Like, how come you aren't focusing on Desiree being a beast at the immunity challenge with the basketball? You're focusing on Jonathan fucking diving into water and releasing buoys. Like, okay. I wasn't happy about that.
Yeah.
So, tribal.
Yeah,
Number
tribal. They did the stupid whisper thing again, and I'm just like, y'all.
Do you not like the whisper thing?
I just feel like it's really petty and childish to be like, oh, give me a sec. I'm just going to check and make sure everyone's okay. Like, I feel like that also shows very little faith in your alliance. Because, like, for me, I feel like if someone was like, I'm going to check and make sure we're still okay, I'd be like, did I make you think that we weren't okay? Are you really that paranoid? And then I'd get angry.
Okay, so you don't have anything like against the whispering. You have stuff against people trying to like check to see if the plan's still a plan.
Yeah, just like I feel like a lot of people keep talking about like, oh, tribal councils are live or whatever, but I feel like you should assume that the plan is still the plan unless someone says something that makes you think that like, oh, that's a little shady. And I feel like none of her allies said anything that would make Gonzalez like be like, oh, maybe I should check, you know?
Yeah, I feel like in usual whispering scenarios at tribal council, it is sort of annoying because us as the viewer don't hear anything that they're saying. We don't know what's happening. We just see them all whispering, huddling, blah, blah, blah. But I think Jeff did a good job this episode because he sort of asked leading questions about what was happening. He was like, oh, do you feel left out? Oh, don't you want to know what they're talking about kind of thing. So I thought that was really good so we could sort of get a little bit of insight. But, like, when everyone's whispering, we don't know what's happening. And, like, I don't know. I guess it's good for them, bad for the viewer, but I think Gonzalez basically going up at Tribal Council, I think that cements her fate at Tribal to be voted out, because it shows she's just not secure. She's causing a scene at the first Tribal. You would vote her out because she's more of a liability than Donathan, because I think Stephanie said it really well. Like, you can make Donathan into your little pet. You can nurture him, make him vote your way, whereas Gonzalez is going to be someone who has her own mind, who will want to switch things up. So I guess it's a good, like, voting out the liability versus, but then it's also like you're keeping the weaker player who would be worse TV than Gonzalez, who would probably be better TV, more willing to make big moves. I'm not really sure we'll see Donathan making any moves this season.
Yeah, I feel like Donathan's story is more going to be about like his personal stuff rather than his strategic stuff.
Yeah, he's definitely not going – he's going to be on the same par as Mike and David in terms of physicality, I feel like, getting that whole growth edit. But I definitely don't see him being on par with them in terms of playing the game Survivor. And I don't know. I felt bad for Donathan at Tribal. He looked so sad when no one was talking to him. So I felt bad for him. But – yeah, I don't know. I was rooting for Donathan this first episode. The second episode, he sort of got more annoying, I guess, with all of his like growth edit thing, which didn't even warrant a growth edit. But yeah, I don't know. Donathan, don't see him winning the game, so he'll just sort of be on the island, probably taking up screen time.
Yeah. But then after Tribal, Jacob comes back from Ghost Island and proceeds to tell literally the worst lie ever. Like, oh my goodness, this guy. Like, so he comes back from Ghost Island and he tells at this idol, and then it's like he forgets the paper. Like, bruh, especially because he's playing the whole like super fan persona. It's like if he was just a casual and he was like, oh, I didn't realize I had to bring the paper with me, that would be so much more believable than just like, I forgot the paper.
Yeah, I feel like it was a good plan to sort of stretch the truth and not tell everyone exactly what Ghost Island is. And we saw 2 fake idols this episode, which we'll talk about. I thought that was really, really cool. But why, Jacob, would you bring it out so publicly? I mean, there's a lot of ways to infer to your tribe that you have won some advantage at Ghost Island. Maybe won an idol, maybe won a vote steal, maybe won anything at Ghost Island. You could say you got an idol, but don't show people unless they asked. Or you could basically walk around camp with something in your pants to show that you might have won something, and people will be skeptical of it, because even when you're showing them the idol, they will be sketchy of you. If you're walking around camp like you own the place, they will be sketchy of you. Either way, they will be sketchy, so do it in the less out there method. I feel like the most subtle way is the best way, and I think I understand where Jacob's coming from, like sitting the entire tribe down because he doesn't want the target on his back, but I definitely think that plants a bigger target on his back. Like, everyone is going to be sketch of you because nobody knows what's on Ghost Island. Your entire story could be a lie for all they know. So like bringing and drawing more attention to yourself, not good.
The thing is, I feel like he also totally could have done, like, the whole thing like Debbie did in Game Changers, where she was like, oh, it was horrible, and there was no food or whatever. Like, Jacob could have honestly just, like, lied out of his teeth about these things instead of, like, coming up with a semi-plausible lie that ended up screwing him.
Yeah, because what if there's 15 urns or 13 urns or something at Ghost Island, that many amount of people will go, or less, because someone may go multiple times. So not everyone's going to know what it is, but word of mouth spreads. So you just have to say some things that are true, and maybe, oh, it changes every time. This time he didn't get as much rice. Oh, Donathan got a ton of rice when he went, kind of thing. And I think good on Brendan. It shows. I think Brendan had a good edit this episode, or like the premiere episode. It shows that Brendan is like looking at these smaller things like, oh, where's the paper? You know this super nerd won't leave the paper on Ghost Island. And I think that's good for Brendan. I think Brendan is definitely going into that dad role. We see him at the second tribal, thinking that Stephanie has double-crossed them. And I think it's good for Brendan keeping his eye out and ear open, like with these small things that, oh, Donathan fucking accepted the fake idol so quickly. Donathan was like, oh my god, dude, that's so cool. And then like, conversation has changed, but then Brendan brings it back and asks where's the paper.
Yeah, I just feel like it's, like you said, it's those kind of things that delineate like the really sharp players. Because I feel like attention to detail is so important in Survivor, like not only like in camp life, but also like in puzzles and in searching for idols and literally everything, like being able to like use your brain and those sorts of things is like, yeah, important.
Yeah, so I feel like maybe nowadays in Survivor it won't be enough to, oh, just show someone you have a hidden immunity idol. Now maybe it will be like you have to show someone the paper, because you can fake a hidden immunity idol, but you can't fake that paper. So it'll be interesting if people start trying to like, oh, steal paints from the painting things and steal like a writing utensil or something to try to create their own paper nowadays. And I think that plays well into Dominic finding his first real idol of the season. I think that was crazy. He was out in the middle of the night. This might be the new norm of idol searching, so you aren't drawing that much attention to yourself and you can do it privately. But I think the major flaw with this was when Dominic was trying to get on Chris's good side or be buddy-buddy with him. Chris straight up asks him, oh, do you have the idol? Dominic says no. A few minutes later, Dominic goes back on his word and then shows Chris a fake idol, saying like, oh, I'll use it for you if it needs to do that. But I think Dominic should have just stayed with his first answer of no. I think going back on your word, going back and saying, oh, no, I didn't have it, now I do, seems very sketchy. If you wanted to wait a few days and be like, hey, Chris, look, I just found the idol now, I think that would have built more trust between the two. But I think Chris is just super sketched about Dominic. Dominic is super sketched about Chris. And yeah, I think we need to see it play out sooner rather than later.
I was kind of like mildly disappointed because I'm worried that like the whole Ghost Island setup is going to cause another advantage get in, just because like you have advantages going into the game from Ghost Island, but then you also have like hidden immunity idols and stuff hidden as normal. Like to me, that just sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, final 5, final 6. We'll see Suri get voted out with no votes again. That's a bummer. But yeah, I don't know. I think Dominic, I think he should have stayed with a no. I feel like, oh, maybe Dominic was bored. He wanted to cause drama or get things rolling. But I don't think it was a good idea to go back on your word, say no, then say yes. Show Chris that you have a fake, maybe real idol. But now Chris knows you at least have one real idol because you have the piece of paper.
Unless Chris doesn't put together that the paper comes from, like, if Chris doesn't realize that the idol is the fake idol is a fake, you know, then he could think that the fake idol was the real idol, and then if that's what causes him to get voted out. You know what I don't understand?
What?
As people are leaving, why don't they screw over the people who screwed them over just by being like, oh yeah, so-and-so has an idol? Like, that would be like the ultimate way to take revenge, I feel like. Even if it's not true, like we've seen how much like having an advantage can paint a target on your back. So just throwing out that quick, oh yeah, this person has an idol, even if it's not true, could ruin the rest of their game. And I feel like that would be sweet, sweet revenge.
Honestly, Alyssa, go on and do it. I feel like, I mean, that's what I've thought about too. Like, why don't you just blow up everyone's shit at Tribal when you're voted out? But I feel like a lot of people have said, like, oh, you're just voted out. You want to maintain a good grace, and you're going to have to live with these people at Ponderosa, so you can't really fuck everyone over, or else no one will like you. So I feel like people just keep their mouths shut. But I mean, that'd be great. You can spill the beans about everyone. I feel like you would only really spill the beans if your alliance backstabbed you, because then you knew all the stuff. You could like totally be like, oh, my closest ally who just backstabbed me has an idol, has an advantage, blah, blah, blah. Like, watch out. But I feel like, I don't know, that could add an interesting aspect to the game. I feel like that'd be a really low move.
Yeah, it would be low, but it would be funny. Yeah.
Let's do it. So,
second immunity challenge.
I don't think we need to talk about it that much. I was WTF with the music and Donathan. I think James, good for owning up for the challenge, but my dude mentioned it like 3 times throughout this episode. Like, that makes you an easy vote out to go home because everyone is saying that you screwed up and you're owning it and you are saying you don't deserve to keep going on. Like, dude, say it one time, leave it, and don't keep repeating it, because at Tribal, I was even like, time to vote James out. He keeps bringing up his failure in the immunity challenge.
Especially because it didn't even look like he tried. Like, he'd go down like 1 or 2 feet before coming back up. Like, come on, bruh. You don't need to be an Olympic diver to be able to swim down 8 feet.
Yeah, right. 13 feet is the normal deep end of any pool. 8 feet is your height plus 3, maybe, if you're 5 foot. So, yeah. I don't know. But maybe he's just not good at swimming down. There's no wall to push off of. That could be difficult, but I feel like you just propel yourself downwards and then you go down.
Yeah.
So, then, okay, the interesting part about the immunity challenge, I think, was them sending Dominic to Ghost Island. I thought it was interesting. Jeff was saying, who are you going to send to Ghost Island? And then Jacob verbally says this. I'm like, keep your mouth shut, Jacob. Come on. Jacob says, oh, and they'll do it again. And then Purple Tribe says Donathan, and then Jacob makes a visible noise, like, damn it. Like, I'm just like, Jacob, Donathan, why would you say this out loud? How do you know that they're going to send you again? Why would you say verbally? Why would you verbally look pissed off that Donathan's going to Tribal? Going to Ghost Island. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just, at this point, I was already done with Jacob.
Aw. That's so sad.
I have very little patience.
Yeah, we'll talk about Stephanie and then we'll talk about Jacob. I think Jacob, basically Steven fishbacked himself out of this game. Haha, let's get that trademarked. But I think Stephanie schmoozing Jacob. Stephanie did an amazing job these 2 episodes. I think she was really good, and it was surprising because I feel like Alyssa and I thought Stephanie would go early because she seemed like she had a very, very upbeat, like, weird personality, but it seems like she is very under control. She won't be outcasted as being like the annoying mom or something like that. So I think she had a really good episode this week.
Yeah, I thought that Steph definitely had a good episode, and I feel like her schmoozing Jacob kind of showed just how incompetent Jacob is at the game.
Aw. I think Stephanie made a really good move. Jacob doesn't really bring that much to the table because he doesn't have any alliances or numbers or anything like that. The only thing he would be is loyal, so he would be a good vote. But that's what Donathan is already. You can't have two Donathans on the tribe because they're basically going to be your little goat the entire season. So I think Stephanie literally got all that she could out of Jacob. And she doesn't need him anymore because she has all the info. She knows the immunity idol's fake. She knows who has the legacy advantage. She knows like what Ghost Island is from Jacob. Like you don't need him around anymore. And I think Stephanie and Jenna, I guess. Stephanie choosing to go with the Brendan alliance was probably the best move right now, especially second boot out of the game. You don't want to piss off these strong dudes like Brendan and Michael because I think that would be super bad early in the game. And I sort of related it to Chrissy not sticking up for Katrina the first episode because you know things will change. You need to vote out the people where the majority of the tribe is going rather than try to switch things up so early because then for the rest of the season, Brendan and Michael would not want to work with Stephanie, and I think that would be a bigger loss than it would have been to keep Jacob around.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely one of those things where like risk reward needs to be taken into account, and trying to keep Jacob around was too big of a risk but too little of a reward because especially like you said, she already had all the information that she needed.
Yeah, and I didn't want my boy Michael to go. 18? Like, how the hell does he look so old? 18-year-olds definitely don't look like that. Alyssa and I are like 19 and 20. We look like we're 12. I don't understand how Michael looks like he's 30.
Boys are different. It's weird.
Yeah, I am like very confused because some residents on the floor are like, oh, they look young. Like you could definitely tell they're college freshmen. But then some of these kids are like freaking massive. You cannot tell how old they are. They could be 25 for all you know. So I think one thing about Michael, really quick, before we talk about Jacob, would be Michael lying about his age. We knew that he was going to lie about his age, and I think he played it off really well. I don't think anyone will know that he's actually 18 because he does not look 18 straight up, which is really interesting. And I think it would be the funniest thing if Michael had a showmance with someone on this season, and then like later he tells the person that he's actually 18, and then the person would be super bamboozled.
Yeah.
Catfish?
I feel like catfished. Yes. But then
yeah, what
Jacob,
were you saying?
I was gonna say, Jacob goes home, useless. But then I feel like definitely the people that we've been like talking about throughout this whole podcast, like Brendan, Chris, Dominic, Donathan, Steph, are really the only ones that we have enough to like warrant like actually looking for in future episodes. Just because I feel like the majority of the players so far like haven't like gotten their balls rolling yet. So we don't know like where the heck they're going.
Yeah, I think a little bit more about Jacob quickly. I feel bad for him. I don't know. Poor dude, like he loves the game so much and he was saying how he loves it so much that really makes him want to do well, and to be voted out early, that must be so hard. I think yeah, it sucks though. He said he had to do or is still in therapy because of Survivor and being voted out early and all of that stuff. And I don't know. I think he just basically, Stephen Fish backed himself out of the game. He was a little too nervous, a little too early, which, you can say is warranted, but then he also might have made his paranoia go over the top. And I think pouring the rice into his dirty socks, like, okay, good idea in thought, but disgusting in person. And like the risk versus reward of that, like if someone walked in on you dumping the food into your fucking dirty socks, that would be automatic vote out right there. And so, I don't know, just feel bad for the dude. Things weren't lining up in his favor. I feel like if this is hard, but if you're just less neurotic, maybe you'd still be around.
Yeah, I knew that Jacob was going home basically from when his shoes washed away. I was just like, this is it. He's going to be gone by the end of this premiere. So, yeah.
Yeah, so people to look out for. I think in the future, I have 4 people that I think could be people that go far in the game. So I guess I'll go through it. But I think Wendell, even though he basically only had one line this entire episode, the one line was very memorable when Wendell's super smart too, went to UPenn Law and then followed his dreams of being a furniture designer. That was super cool. And I think Wendell just seems likable. He seems like the archetype of survivor, attractive, fit, smart. And when he's talking to Sebastian about who might be voted out first time tribal if they go to tribal, Sebastian's like, Dominic, right? Wendell's basically like, nah, dude, I like Dominic. Keep on thinking, let it marinate a little. And I really like that about Wendell. I think I hope he goes far. I think he's really cool. My second one, a lot of people think Kellen is the winner of the season. I think Kellen, after rewatching the episode, Kellen killed it in the first immunity challenge with the puzzle. She was screaming orders, so I guess she's good at puzzles. And then she got 2 confessionals within the first 15 minutes of the season. She was the first confessional of the season as well. So I think that might be something to keep an eye out for in the next upcoming episodes. Yeah, like we were saying, Brendan, definitely, I think he has like the dad role going on. I think Michael and Libby will be his main 2, and I think we guessed this in our bootless challenge. Michael, yeah, doesn't look like he's 18. I think Libby will be a good goat for Brendan, and I think it sort of goes along to the fact that she didn't get any confessionals this episode. Like, she definitely could be a goat this season, and I think I'm afraid I would like to see more of Michael, but I feel like Michael this season may just be Brendan's right-hand man, and he might not be anything more than that. So I think that's something that we could see play out this season, where Brendan is the main dude, Michael's like the side dude, but Michael doesn't get any credit or anything because he's just following Brendan's lead. And then finally, I think Stephanie, not really much to explain. She had a great episode. I did not expect her to come out this way.
Yeah, I feel like the 3 that I'm definitely looking forward to seeing are Steph, Brendan, and Dominic, just because I feel like those are the people who are in the most solid position to be able to, like, start taking control of the game just from what we've seen of them so far.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Next time with the tribe swap, I do want to see more of Bradley. Most attractive dude this season, haha. But yeah, I would like to see more of Bradley. I would be interested, yeah, in seeing in his preview, pre-show stuff. He seemed very cocky, but he was able to keep it under wraps this first episode, not really getting any confessionals about bad-mouthing his tribe. So I think that'd be really interesting. Super attractive dude. Next time in the tribe swap, we guessed it. I was thinking tribe swap after 2 vote outs. So at 18, it will be interesting if it is 2 or 3 tribes. I would prefer like a 3 tribe swap, but I think that would be difficult with the whole Ghost Island thing, because then it's like, who do you vote out? Or like, who picks who gets sent to Ghost Island? And then you only have 5 people left on your tribe if 1 person out of 6 is sent to Ghost Island. That just makes things very difficult. But I think 18 people on 2 tribes, we are not going to see a ton of people this season because there's so many people left. And considering we didn't hear from 4 people in the premiere of 2 hours, not even just 1 hour, I don't know. That's concerning to me.
Yeah, I feel like the tribe swap is also going to be interesting, and Ghost Island is also going to be interesting because, like, if a tribe has an even number of people, when someone gets sent to Ghost Island, there's going to be a majority and a minority when there wasn't before. So I feel like that's going to be really interesting and also give like the opposite tribe a lot of control when it comes to like vote outs. And I also wonder if they split into 3 tribes, like how do they decide who goes to Ghost Island? Because it's like there's more than one winning tribe. So I guess they'd probably just do the first place tribe, but lots of questions. I'm really excited to see what happens next week, though, just because I feel like we're only really scratching the tip of the iceberg with this.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because if you pick, like, picking out of a 6-person tribe, 1 person to go, 5 people left, you basically screw over the minority side if they're only 2 because they're 3rd person left. So I don't know. I think it puts too much power into the remaining 3 because you randomly guess correct. Like, oh, this person's part of this alliance, let's send them kind of thing. And I think the Chris Dominic thing will have to play out next week, the week after, or soon. Definitely before pre-merge. I think Chris is going home out of this little feud that they have. And I thought it was really interesting that they didn't mention the Final Four twist at the beginning or anything like that, because these people didn't see, or like, yeah, season 35 wasn't shown or anything because they were filming. So like they don't know that this Final Four fire making twist is like a thing in Survivor now. So I think Jeff needs to tell them, because who you bring to the Final Four with this Final Four twist definitely changes if you have a twist versus if you don't have a twist. There can be a lot of strategy that goes into that. So I think someone needs to say something to these people about Final Four twist. And yeah, I think going along with that, the Celebrity Big Brother Final Four, that was a shit show. Marissa had too much power, but that is a whole separate story. But yeah, Final Four twist, someone needs to say something about it.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. Just like you said, I feel like there's a lot of arcs that like are going to start like getting worked with in the next couple episodes, and I hope that more arcs get started, and the Final Four challenge is going to be crazy, and I think I'm just a lot more excited for this season than I was for Heroes, Healers, Hustlers, just because like it seems like there's already a lot more that's happening.
Yeah, I think definitely we have a lot of things to look forward to this next upcoming week. I think there's a lot of, hopefully, good players this season that are willing to make big moves. And I think we've seen a lot of that in the premiere episode with 2 fake idols, 1 real idol, blind sides as well. So I think I'm looking forward to the season. I think a lot of people, and us as well, were sort of skeptical about the season, but I think hopefully it's a good one. It seems very upbeat and high paced right now.
Yeah. So next week is going to be great, and we're going to be podcasting again, and everything's going to be awesome. So if you guys have any comments about this episode, things you think we should have mentioned in this podcast but we didn't, feel free to leave them down below, and we'll respond ASAP. But until then, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.